Kroger, an annual Boost membership just got even better. Now you can choose from Disney Plus with ads, Hulu with ads, or ESPN Plus on us when you sign up. Plus, enjoy unlimited free delivery, double fuel points, exclusive offers, and free items. Sign up for a Boost membership today. It's an easier way to save, including new streaming options to relax with while we deliver your groceries. Kroger, fresh for everyone. Restrictions apply. See site for details.
John Hendricks alongside Ross Jackson for Second and Saints, our Week 18 last game of the season. Can't hold anything back post-game show. You came and hung out with us in the stream and stuff. You guys kind of got our thoughts on this one. But, man, Ross, you've changed a little bit there.
Yes, I went to my casual side, so gray V-neck, just letting everybody know. No taco meat to show today or anything. Just keeping it light, keeping it casual. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I feel you there, man. So obviously this game, they had them in the first half, not gonna lie, but second half, this is another game where they can't play 4 quarters of football. This is another time where they shoot themselves in the foot. It's penalties, it's miscues, it's mistakes. I mean, this is not a just one-time thing. This happened under Dennis Allen, but this is just fitting how they ended this season, right? Like they look great in the first half. You're thinking, man, they could really do this thing. You play for the city, do all this stuff. And then the second half, just lay a big giant turd at the end. You know what I mean?
Yeah, kind of reminds you of a flashy 2-game win streak to start, followed by a 7-game losing streak after that. Then you get a 2-game losing streak to start, and then you win only one more game after that. Like this is kind of what has been happening for the New Orleans Saints for some seasons now. And look now, bottom of the NFC South, last place finish in the NFC South behind the Carolina Panthers, who knocked off the Atlanta Falcons earlier in the day. And so a tough way to end the season, a disappointing way to end the season, 5-12 at the bottom of the division. But the season is now over. The merciful end is here. And so now you get to look forward to potential change and all that. And look, we can sit here, we can rail about all the things that are wrong with New Orleans. They have to get them fixed, and they have every opportunity in front of them to get them fixed. It's just going to take some time. And if they can't do that, then more changes I expect would be on the way beyond that.
Yeah. And look, we're sitting here, and obviously one of the first dominoes to fall, Gerard Mayo gets fired.
Yeah.
That's going to be Mike Vrabel's job, presumably. I mean, he's interviewed with the Jets. That's one coaching candidate off the Saints list, presumably. I mean, we're just crossing the T's and dotting the I's here, right? Like it just makes the most sense. And, for the Saints to finish dead last in the NFC South is very sobering. And for those who don't understand the draft pick stuff, the tiebreaker in the NFL goes to strength of schedule. It doesn't matter that the Saints finished 4th. The Saints had a better strength of schedule than Carolina. Therefore, if they tied with Carolina or any similar opponents, it goes to the strength of schedules. That's the one time it bites you in the butt. Just so everybody's clear on that one. So,
yeah.
But, look, it's crazy to think that they finished dead last. I mean, this is their worst season since 2005. We knew that's how it was going to end up, right? But, for New Orleans, I mean, I liked what we saw from Spencer Rattler in the first half. I thought he looked great. I think he played like, oh, man, if this is the Spencer Rattler that plays next year, he could be QB1, you know what I mean? Like, without totally jumping the gun. And he did it without Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, Alvin Kamara, Eric McCoy, Lucas Patrick starting there. I mean, you just go down the list. No Kendre Miller. He did it without those weapons. But in the second half, whether it was Clint Kubiak's play calling or whatever the case may be, just looked completely different.
Yeah, it's the tale of two halves conversation all over again. We've heard it over and over again. We've already said it multiple times today, but we've heard it over and over again all season. It was just another example of that. I mean, to finish that first half, 21 of 28 with a touchdown, 181 yards, and 2 more potential touchdown passes that would be graded properly, or not graded properly, but would be graded positively, on his game film and on his tape. You saw all the promise there in the first half, but the team collectively melting down in the second half ends up bringing you a lot of pressure. When the defense isn't able to get off the field because of penalties, that ends up keeping the offense off the field. You don't get to build the momentum. You don't get to build the rhythm. When the defense is giving up scoring, then all of a sudden your offense becomes a little bit more one-dimensional because you're having to pass the ball. I mean, Spencer Rattler threw the ball 42 times in this game, which, typically speaking, if your quarterback's throwing the ball that much, especially a young quarterback, it's typically not a good thing for like the entire outlook of the offense, unless that rookie quarterback or that young quarterback is just carrying the team, which you can only do so much with the weapons that you have on this offense. And so just another one of those situations to where really great start, but an inability to finish, particularly in the second half. Those third, fourth quarter dips, man, like we've seen it all season long.
Yeah, and I think the disappointing thing here is the fourth quarter. I mean, you had a chance to get the ball back with 8 minutes to go, and then the Bucs convert a 3rd and long with Baker Mayfield and deep in their own territory. And then they have another 3rd and long, and they convert it again. Baker Mayfield running. Like, it's just the defense is, I mean, if anything, we've talked about overhaul, but this defense has got to look way different next season, right? Like,
Yeah.
Parts, pieces, it doesn't matter whether it's the right coach or anything, but look, it's just not coming together. It hasn't come together, and this was supposed to be the backbone for this team. This is what was supposed to get them there, right? Like, this was supposed to be the difference between the 8 and 9 win season to getting to the 10. Like, that's what they believed last season. We just needed to pick up one more win, and they regressed, right? Like, the Saints defense was just bad. And so a lot of it's on Dennis Allen, but it's not all on Dennis Allen. If anything, it shows there's got to be some major talent assessment on the defense, and they have really got to invest in it this offseason.
Yeah, I mean, even just from the impact plays, right? 14 takeaways over the course of the first 9 games, 3 over the course of the last 8 games. That's abysmal. That's a big time drop off to finish up in that situation there for New Orleans. They were a solid red zone defense early on in the season, could not make stops in the red zone late in the season. They were a solid third down defense at one point, could not get stops on third down. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers entered this game the best team in the NFL when it came to third down conversions. In this one, they converted over 60% of their third downs, 10 of 16, while New Orleans went 3 of 13 on the offensive side. This defense has been a liability for the New Orleans Saints. The run game has been a liability for the New Orleans Saints, or run defense, has been a liability for the New Orleans Saints each of the past 3 years, effectively. And so I'm with you, man. I expect to see a lot of change on that defensive staff. I expect to see some change on the defensive players, like the roster and personnel as well. I think you know where your key players are in terms of your young guys that stood out. I thought Kool-Aid McKinstry played a really strong game this weekend. I thought that Brian Brzee had another really good season, just couldn't keep the momentum of where he was, all that. I think that, like, that's, you know, where your building blocks are, and you know some of your veterans are going to be back. DeMario, Tyron, possibly Cam, possibly, like, all these guys. But I think beyond that, you're looking at change across the board, like unilateral change over on the defensive side. I would not be surprised to see a lot of it. New defensive coordinator, and with that new defensive coordinator will probably come new coaches. Could be interesting to see what that means for Michael Hodges, what that means for Marcus Robertson, a couple of guys that I would consider keeping around. But Michael Hodges is going to be a hot DC name, as he always is every year, you know. So it'll be interesting to kind of see where it all goes. But I expect the defensive side of the football to see the largest immediate overhaul, if you will, while the offense sees more incremental change based on addition as opposed to subtraction.
Yeah, I agree. Again, there's a lot of pieces that have to be fixed. And look, they got to get a lot fixed in this offseason. And it's just a bucket list of here's top to bottom. Like, it's going to look like a CVS receipt of what they have to address. And again, I don't expect it to get fixed in just one offseason, but I would like to see him make strides. And look, if it's the youth movement, if they go in the draft, I'm fine with going and invest in a younger guys, just because you know that this team is not going to be super competitive going into 2025. I don't care what anybody says right now. Like, you can talk it, believe it, walk it, all this other stuff, but you still got to go play football games. And I don't think they have it in them right now. And maybe I'll be, maybe I'll get egg on my face because of who comes in, and maybe they make rapid change. But it looks like defensive minded coach would probably be the way they go.
Yeah, I can see them going that route. I mean, you could go defensive minded coach, or you could go leadership figurehead, coach, and then hire a new defensive coordinator. So they'll have a little bit of versatility there. And look, they could also, if the right offensive mind comes along, they're not going to be ruled out just because they want to be an offensive play caller and stuff like that. And so I think the tricky part becomes for New Orleans, where do they really end up having a chance at head coach? I mean, Mike Vrabel to New England just makes too much sense. We'll see if that actually ends up happening. It's kind of the Raheem Morris situation from last year's where it's like, oh, well, that's the obvious fit. Mike Vrabel to Las Vegas makes just as much sense with Tom Brady being a part of that ownership group and having the connection there. I don't think Aaron Glenn's as much of a shoe-in as people think he might be with that New York Jets job now, wide open and everything too. And he was drafted there. It gives him an opportunity to go back. It was 12th overall selection there in the first round of his draft, yada, yada. Like, that's a story. And that's something that I think that the Jets would love as well. But, so where do you go if you're New Orleans? And how likely is it that you actually end up bringing in a new candidate that ends up being able to not only guide you through a restructure, rebuild, retool, overhaul, whatever, but also create sustained success for you beyond that? Or are you just looking at a stopgap head coach that ends up coming in for a couple of years, gets you through the rebuild, gets you through getting your salary cap situation right, and then helps you build a better situation to sell at a later time? I don't think that's the wrong approach to go. We see NFL teams do this all the time around the league, but I mean, it makes for what will mean not all the positives that everybody might want to see most immediately in 2025.
And we're going to find out how serious they are, right? Like, I think that's the thing is them going with familiar and just kind of running it back with just chalking up to injuries is probably the worst thing that they could do. You know what I mean? Like, I just think you got to abandon that. You got to get out of that thought process, and you can't compete in this division right now. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know when the season began, I was high on the Saints, but I also picked the Bucs to win this division, right? And so I didn't buy the Atlanta hype. And so if you win the offseason as paper champions, it doesn't mean anything, right? But for the Saints, it's this game. I know it's hard and it's fresh, but some positives again outside of Rattler's first half. I thought Blake Grupe ended his season on a high note. I thought Rico Payton, JT Gray were two guys that really helped their case too. I liked what I saw from Nephi Sewell out there a little bit there today. Mario Davis as well. And look, I there's just not too many things to take away from this loss, but at some point you got to sit here and say, okay, there are some players that the Saints team has that could be playing bigger roles in 2025 for this team. And again, it remains to be seen who that's going to be, but they have a free agent situation to look at. They've got salary cap to manage. They got to get a new head coach. They've got to prep for the draft. I mean, this is I know a lot of people think that, for us that we kind of like, all right, season's over. Well, we're done. This is only going to get started for us, right? Like this is the fun part.
Yeah, man. Yeah. It does not get any lighter or less busy at this point. In fact, John and I already talked about, we'll be at the Senior Bowl. We've got the combine coming up. We've got, the drafts. We've got, I'm going to go to the owners meetings and things like that. Like, there's just so many of these big things that will all be huge and consequential for the history of this team, or the future of this team, excuse me. And so, no, definitely not any slowing down on the way for this team at all.
Yeah. And again, it's tough. And finishing 5-12, finishing fourth in the division, it changed up their opponents for 2025. And if you like traveling, I mean, they got some long road trips. I was writing about it after the game, and they actually are literally going to like every corner of the states. So you got Seattle, then you got Los Angeles, Miami, and then Buffalo. I mean, I'm not a geography totally guy, but that's kind of where they're going. But additionally, they're going to be going to Nashville because they're going to play the Titans now instead of the Jaguars. Yeah, right. The Giants are coming to town instead of the Cowboys. And then you got to go to Chicago now instead of Green Bay for a third straight year. So silver lining maybe a little bit, but their Saints, the Saints opponent lineup for 2025. I mean, it's not really any easier for whoever comes in here. And, again, whoever takes this job, they've got a lot of work cut out for them.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's going to be a tough situation, and it's going to be one that not only the new candidate, new coach, right, but that the Saints themselves are going to have some patience in the midst of
Mm.
all this. I mean, the crazy part about, or not crazy, forgive me, but the most interesting part about the Gerard Mayo firing is how impatient all of a sudden the New England Patriots were, which is a
Yeah.
really surprising look from them, right? That's not typically their kind of MO, if you will. It's not typically the thing that they do. And so to be in a situation to where they make a move off of Gerard Mayo, it just shows you that, like, okay, well, maybe there's some impatience there that candidates don't necessarily want to deal with. And so that could be, a big part of what you're looking at for New Orleans is just how patient they are, how patient they've proven to be, and all that, and how important that ends up becoming for this team as a selling point. So we'll see where things go for them. But yeah, it's going to be I mean, goodness gracious, dude. Like, there's just so much work, right? Like, there's a lot of work that has to get done. You need the new head coach, yeah, but also on top of that, like, what are you doing at quarterback? What are you going to do at wide receiver in terms of adding another potential talent there, rebuilding your trenches, your offensive line, your defensive line, like, and all that? Like, I mean, it's just kind of a wild offseason on
Mm.
the way for this team. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, and look, here's the thing: is I know Mike Vrabel is probably one of the top guys, but do you trust a new guy to come in here like an Aaron Glenn, or let's say it's Joe Brady, or some of our guys that we liked? Do you
Mm-hmm.
trust somebody like that to come in, or do you want somebody who has had some proven success, like maybe a Pete Carroll, a sleeper candidate,
Right.
right? That might
Mm-hmm.
be somebody that can come in and at least get you a functional organization, I think, in a lot of ways. Is that the play, or do you think a
Boy, that's
first
an
year head coach
interesting.
could do it? I think that's a
Yeah.
lot to be putting on a first year head coach, first year head coach.
Yeah, that's true. That's a really interesting way to look at it. And look, there's been all this conversation around like Steve Sarkisian and NFL teams having, interest in him and stuff like that. But is bringing a college coach up the ranks really something you're in a position to do? You know what I mean? And so
Mm-mm.
instead, you're looking at these guys that have the NFL experience. Pete Carroll's a really interesting name I had never given any thought to. You have to look at, a guy like John Gruden would be a part of that conversation as well. But are you really the organization that can absorb that much distraction right now? I don't think you are. And so, even then, those options are limited. That's probably why a Matt Nagy is a guy whose name was brought up recently and stuff like that, as a guy you could bring in as a culture builder, but don't let him call the offense. Maybe, but I mean, in that case, you're really looking at a guy to come in and like establish your culture and then sell their product to somebody else. Like it's a tough situation to sell if you're the New Orleans Saints.
Men, if you've lost your hair, it doesn't mean you can't find it again. Try Hims Hair Loss Solutions and you'll be joining hundreds of thousands of subscribers who found their hair again. It can be hard for men to deal with hair loss, even though it is common. Luckily, I'm here to provide you with a solution so you don't even have to talk about it. Through Hims, you can restore your hair by accessing their personalized hair loss solutions. Men value many different things about their appearance, but if you're a guy who really cares about your hair and find that it's slowly going away, you might be feeling discouraged when you look in the mirror. And that's where Hims comes in. Check out their personalized hair loss solutions, and you can start seeing your hair grow back in as little as 3 to 6 months. Hims provides you with convenient access to a range of hair loss treatments that work, all from the comfort of your couch. Hims makes treating hair loss simple with doctor-trusted options and clinically proven ingredients, like finasteride and minoxidil that can regrow hair in as little as 3 to 6 months. Choose from personalized chewable, oral, spray, and serum treatments to find what works best for you. The process is simple and 100% online, so there are no uncomfortable doctor visits. Answer a few questions and a medical provider will determine if treatment is right for you. If prescribed, your treatment is sent directly to you for free. No insurance is needed and one low price covers everything from treatments to ongoing care. Hims has hundreds of thousands of trusted subscribers. And they can help you get your confidence back too with visibly thicker and fuller hair. Start your free online visit today at hims.com/Hail Mary. That's HIMS.com/Hail Mary for your personalized hair loss treatment options. Hims.com/Hail Mary. Results may vary based on studies of topical and oral minoxidil and finasteride. Prescription products require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if a prescription is appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for full details and important safety information.
Dave's Killer Bread is ready to rock your January reset with killer taste, killer nutrition, and a chance to win a VIP concert prize pack. Text RESET to 73876 to enter. No purchase necessary. Visit daveskillerbread.com/reset for details.
Kroger Delivery makes it easy to do your holiday shopping in a jingle. There might be a lot on your to-do list, but thanks to Kroger Delivery, you can get everything you need delivered straight to your door at the same great prices you'd find in store. Our refrigerated trucks always ensure that your groceries arrive fresh. And right now, you can save $20 on your first order of $75 or more and get free delivery with a Boost membership. Restrictions apply. See site for details. Kroger, fresh for everyone.
Yeah, I don't think you need to come in here and have a retread. Like, you don't need to, I don't say come in and have the DA approach, but you just need something fresh, I feel like. And the thing is, they need something different because this is 4 years now without the playoffs, right? And the thing is, you might be staring at a 5-year absence without the playoffs. And this is too proud of a franchise. And I don't know from what happened where the standard just slipped so much in that time to where mediocrity was okay. You know, and the thing is, when you look at this next head coach, you need somebody who's going to hold him accountable. You're going to need somebody who's not afraid to take a stand and butt heads with whoever's in charge. You need somebody who's going to be very Sean Payton-esque, I guess, in a way. And I don't know if they're going to get that in this coaching cycle and this hiring cycle. I think that's why Vrabel makes a lot of sense, because he is somebody who checks a lot of those boxes for, you know, a lot of teams here. It's just, look, for New Orleans, I'd love to tell you that they're going to fix it and get it all figured out in this offseason, but realistically, I don't see it. And you know, they got to answer, is Derek Carr the quarterback? We've talked about that on previous shows, and gave our thoughts on it, you know, pregame, actually our previous show. So it's a lot to navigate. The Saints will get under the salary cap. Don't worry about that. I know you're going to hear it from the analysts and all this other stuff. Again, the criticism for them kicking the can down the road is it actually has to work. And the criticism is valid now. Like, you can't just keep doing this and then turn in a 5-win season. That doesn't, you're not flexing on that. You know what I mean? So a very crucial offseason for New Orleans. And again, we know Mickey's probably the guy who ends up leading the charge, you know, in that one. I don't know that even if he's not, that opens the door for somebody else internal that is just going to do it. And he might have some influence there. But look, the Saints, they've got to start somewhere. And if you're going to start from a foundation, you got to rip the old one off first.
Yeah, for sure. And that becomes a challenge, right? How do you do something new without switching up the vision? Right? If the vision is the same, then you're inherently going to continue to go back to that vision. And so is that the best or the worst case scenario for New Orleans? Blah, 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 right? Like, there's all these pieces to it. And so it's a challenge. It's a real big challenge for New Orleans. And it's one of the reasons why, like, this offseason, like you mentioned, it does not get less busy at all. I mean, between the rumors that are going to be out to, you know, trying to suss and deal through all the different things that are going to be mentioned and not mentioned, and this, and then having to re-explain all the time the difference between showing interest in somebody versus completely hiring somebody, and like all these other things. Like, it's a busy situation, but it's one that New Orleans, I think, needs to find a way to, however they can, undergo with as new a perspective, as fresh a perspective, new ideas, new identity, like all that kind of stuff. Like, to me, they should be interested in that. There's nothing left to hang on to from what New Orleans used to be as a team. Everything now is about, what does your next iteration, your next era look like? And if people can't find that vision, then you need to have people making decisions that do have access to that vision. Because if you're just trying to rehash the same thing over again and restart the same thing over again, you're not going to find the success that you're looking for.
I love that. And I think that's kind of where they failed in a lot of ways. There's just like, okay, well, we can still be this team, or a shell of this team of what we used to have. And, you know, when Drew left and then when Sean left, I mean, it was just impossible, right? You didn't have what it took to be able to do that. And you tried, I mean, E for effort, right? You know what I'm saying? But it's the end of the day, you just weren't able to do it. And, 7-10, 9-8, and now 5-12. I mean, you're running the gamut of all ways that you can't be a good team. And so it's just, for this Saints team, it's imperative to start the offseason on a good note. Just to walk everybody. So when we go in on Monday, it'll be locker clean out for players. We'll get some insight there. Darren Rizzi, I think for all intents and purposes, probably talked his final time today. Very emotional after the game, which is, to be expected. And he's probably, he should get an interview in the offseason, but let's be real. This is probably the last time we see Darren Rizzi in a Saints attire, if you will. And then after that, they'll take some time. We should be able to talk to Mickey at some point, this week or next week and get some insight from him. And then it's on the coaching search, right? And watching the playoffs, and the Saints are going to be watching it from home again.
Yeah. And that's just, it's what we expected for this season. If we're being honest, like both of us expected the Saints to miss the playoffs this season, but it's still such a disappointing thing because of how good those first two games were. 91 points of output, incredible offense, great rushing offense, like big, explosive, looked like juggernauts and everything like that. They were a team that like all of a sudden it was like, oh, wait, no, they might be a playoff team. And then just the nosedive after that, man, started with the Eric McCoy injury in that tight 15-12 loss to the Philadelphia Eagles back in week 3. And then just the nosedive continued through week 9, firing the head coach. And there was like a little bit of optimism with a couple of wins under Rizzi. And then it all just kind of came crashing down again, minus a Giants game and everything. And so it was just tough, really, really tough. And then the 3 worst teams in the NFL that they played, Carolina Panthers, they lost to week 9. The New York Giants, they beat by 3 points, week 14, week 13, whatever it was, week 14. And then last week up against Las Vegas Raiders in a game that was like a legitimate like embarrassment for the team. Just not what we thought we would see from this team after the first 2 weeks, man. Just like crazy how quickly everything changed, turned, and flipped on its head.
I agree. And it's tough to like. I wasn't too excited. We weren't really convinced after Carolina, right? Like it was cool. Right. It was nice to see that. And then Dallas was kind of the litmus test. And then they passed that with flying colors. And then someone was like, all right, well, they may have something here. This is what we saw in training camp, blah, blah, blah. And then again, you saw how it just came back down to reality and just the inability to play 4 quarters, the inability to finish, the inability to do so many different things, complementary football, like you name it. They proved that it was just fool's gold. It was a farce. You know what I mean? And so again, another lost season. I'm not going to get caught up in a 2-0 start, even if the new coach comes in here. You know what I'm saying? You still got a whole length of place to go.
That's such a good point too, right? Like how poorly this season went completely changes the way that everybody approaches their excitement in 2025. Like I would venture to guess that if the Saints started 4-0 next season and everything like that, people would still be like, I don't believe you. You know what I mean? And that's such a bad situation to be in as a team. Like you would want your fan base to be like just lit over the fact that you started off 4-0 and a tough schedule, all these other things. But like I imagine like not the criticism, but the critical eye for the New Orleans Saints is going to be on a whole new level next year, us included, as well as the fan base.
Yeah, look at the opponents you have to play. You got the Jets, you got the Titans, you got the Giants on there. You're going to have the Panthers again twice. So that's 5 of your games. So you could technically win those 5 games, but you got the NFC West on there. You got the Bears also. That could be another one. Like it's a thing where you could beat up on the small teams that I wouldn't say even better than, but at this point, but can you still beat the superior teams? That's still going to be what the litmus test is for the Saints team is, can they beat a better team? And I think we've yet to see them do that. And then if they can do it, can they do it consistently? And I think that's what was made the past Saints team so good is, didn't matter the opponent. As long as Drew was there, they had a chance. As long as Sean Payton was coaching, they definitely had a chance. They had a chance to do the impossible, and that's what they did so many times. But, there is no light at the end of the tunnel at the moment right now. So it's just a long road. It's like you trying to get across Lake Pontchartrain in a canoe.
Yeah, I guess it's fair to say that there's not light at the end of the tunnel, but there's a tunnel. And there's a ladder. You know what I mean? I think that's the thing too, is like the ladder is there and the ability to climb up and push the hatch open is there. But like, and I use that analogy because nothing's going to be a given, right? Like you can get to the top of that ladder, but are you going to be able to push the door open? Are you going to be able to push the hatch open and everything like that? And like, that's going to be a big thing when it comes to New Orleans, because like in order for them to improve next year, it's not just a matter of can they get healthy and get out on field and look better because they're healthy. They can't do the free agency by injury return thing. They're going to have to also go out there, make the right head coach hire, make the right coordinator decisions, make the right decisions on the coaching staff, make the right decisions at quarterback, make the right decisions in free agency and the draft. And they're going to need those guys in free agency and the draft to contribute. You can't have another season where you go out and you get, you know, a Jamal Williams and then never have him on the field. You can't do another situation where you go out and get a Willie Gay Jr. and then never have him on the field and not put them in position to impact players for you. Like you can't do that anymore. You don't have the money to spend. You don't have the cachet to burn. Like you don't have that anymore. If you're going out there and you're acquiring players, go out there and acquire players that are going to be a difference for you. And like the Saints are going to have to do that. It's going to be their work that gets them to improve, not just something that naturally happens for them.
Yeah, and again, injuries are part of the game. Get better depth. I mean, you got a chance to get better depth and stop trying to put all your eggs in one basket. Like you got to build around. That's what good teams do. They keep on ticking, even if they lose some of their best players, and that's what good teams do. And the Saints just aren't in that conversation. Ross, as we kind of wrap up here, it came up this question, but just hypothetically, I'm going to put Cam, Tyron, and Demario in here. Do they come back next season, and why?
I think I lean towards them probably coming back next season, because I think that like when you're in the middle of an overhaul or rebuild, whatever it is that you want to call it and everything, like you need those veteran guys around to kind of help lead the culture and everything. But I don't know for sure. I mean, it's going to come down to like, these are going to be decisions that new head coach is going to be pivotal in, because here's what I will say. Tyron doesn't go anywhere else willingly. I doubt Demario goes anywhere else willingly. And we already know Cam won't go anywhere else willingly. And so the only reason why any of those three guys get moved on from, Tyron maybe being the biggest exception, but he's made it very clear that he wants to finish his career here at home in New Orleans. And so I would say that the exception becomes, what's the decision that the head coach makes, the new head coach, the new roster builder, the new, roster management peeps? Like, what is that decision? If they're not there, it's because the organization decided that they don't want them there. It's not because those players didn't want to be there. And so I would say that if we're just looking at the player side of it, it seems like they all want to be back here in 2025. But from the coaching side, from the roster building side and all that, there's going to have to be some things that get done, pay cuts, conversations around reworking contracts, all that, in order for those guys to be there. So it's going to be the organizational side of it that that would create the environment in which they don't return. And I don't know that it's the worst choice if they do that for the right reasons, but you got to make sure you're doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah, exactly. And again, they have to, it's going to be on them to say, okay, you say you want to stay in New Orleans and this is what we can offer, find that common ground and stuff. And obviously you can't pay somebody like a $20 million cap hit. I mean, that should be a given, right? If you're going to year 15 or whatever the case may be. But I think Demario Davis has the best argument for making the most out of that, right? Because he's still playing, like Demario can be. And again,
how good he is.
It is. But, for this Saints team, there's so much to figure out in this offseason. We're going to be here for all of it, all that fun stuff. I mean, the topics we get to tackle this offseason are just going to be great. Head coaching candidates, what we do with the roster decisions, and look, keep dialed in a second, the Saints, because we got a lot to talk about. But Ross, we're gonna call you Rock because you got some rock vibes going, right? Look, and you got some love on your suit for the live stream and stuff. So
purple baby,
yeah. But what you got coming up on Locked On and Louisiana Sports?
LouisianaSports.net. I'm doing my column after this. A season to forget is finally over in New Orleans, so we'll break that down. Going to be taking a look at the Steve Sarkisian news or rumors. We're going to take a look as well at the opponents for next season. So all that will be over at LouisianaSports.net and more, like my typical post-game stuff, numbers to know, all that. And then over on Locked On Saints, Mock Draft Monday tomorrow. I'll be live a little bit later on tonight, kind of rehashing this game. I almost said rehabbing this game, rehabbing from this game, and also diving into, like what lies ahead for the future and the complications that are now coming about within the coaching search and all that. So it'd be a very busy couple of days over at Locked On Saints and over at LouisianaSports.net. What you got coming up?
Yeah, I mean, I put out my final key takeaways, what we learned from the Saints after this game, opponents pieces up to. We're going to look at, 2025 and kind of what the Saints need to come away with and what's a couple of areas that they need to improve in. And then it's you're right, mock draft. It's about what they do with the salary cap. It's free agency. It's coaching candidates, deeper dive into those. And look, I'm anxious. I'm ready. I'm ready to go. I mean, again, our season just kind of kicks up a little bit, right? Like it doesn't stop, but it'll be a somber thing for everything that happens on Monday with the locker cleaning out. That's a horrible thing, but it's the last time we'll see some of these players too. So, but anyways, David, I do want to say on behalf of Ross, look, I really appreciate it. I say this every season, but especially the love you guys have shown this pod in such a short time for this season. I cannot thank you guys enough for your support. And look, we're only here because of you guys, and we'll keep being here. But I just got to say a heartfelt thank you for the support this season and helping getting SECOND and the Saints off the ground and running. We got a lot to do, lot to tackle. So Ross, I'll give you a chance to say something because I'm not going to totally be on your behalf.
No, man, I'm right there with you. Like, we don't do this for us. We do this for you. We're not really here to like inflate our own egos. We do this because we have a passion for it and we love it. And thankfully you've been supportive of it. And so we're forever grateful for that and the opportunities that come with that. And we look forward to continuing to do it for a long time. I don't think John and I are going anywhere anytime soon. So it's going to be a lot of fun as we continue to break all this down.
That's right. Definitely. Well, guys, that'll do it for the 2024 season. Next time we're back, we're going to be talking about off season. So Saints are in the off season mode. Keep it tuned here. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. Second and Saints, Locked On Sports Network and LouisianaSports.net and Saints News Network on Sports Illustrated. John Hendricks signing out for Ross Jackson. Y'all have a good one, guys. Thanks.
Love you.
Kroger Delivery makes it easy to do your holiday shopping in a jingle. There might be a lot on your to-do list, but thanks to Kroger Delivery, you can get everything you need delivered straight to your door at the same great prices you'd find in store. Our refrigerated trucks always ensure that your groceries arrive fresh. And right now, you can save $20 on your first order of $75 or more and get free delivery with a Boost membership. Restrictions apply. See site for details. Kroger, fresh for everyone.